I never imagined that a decision that seemed so simple could transform my life in the most drastic way. It was August 12, 2024, at 6:30 p.m., when I received the message that changed everything. I was on the terrace of my apartment in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico, admiring the twilight sky, when my best friend, Raul, sent me a link and a couple of mocking emojis. I opened it and saw photographs of my house. Yes, my house decorated with elegant floral arrangements, crystal cocktail shakers, and groups of people in luxurious attire, as if it were a Beverly Hills mansion. What on earth was happening? The story began weeks earlier, when I decided to be away for a couple of nights to visit my parents in Puebla. I left my house in the hands of my younger sister, Sophia, trusting her as always. But that afternoon I received several disturbing messages. Do you know what's happening at your house? They're using you for something big. Sophia didn't answer my calls, and the deafening silence fueled my anxiety. Finally, at 7:15 p.m. on August 12, Sophia texted, "I'm sorry, brother, but I couldn't talk before. They're organizing something here. I'll explain tomorrow." I slammed the phone down in frustration. The next day, I returned to Guadalajara at 4 p.m. I entered through the back door, nervous, and noticed that the hallway smelled of incense and jasmine. The newly polished floor gleamed under crystal chandeliers I had never ordered. I moved forward cautiously, and upon reaching the main living room, I almost fainted. Dozens of glasses lined up perfectly on a mahogany table, frosted crystal goblets, velvet upholstered chairs, and on the wall, a gilded sign that read, "Exclusive Gala 2024. My house, which until 2 nights ago was a modest refuge, had been turned into a VIP lounge for bankers, entrepreneurs, and local celebrities. I felt anger, disappointment, and an urgent need to discover those responsible. I walked into the kitchen and found Mariana, a neighbor I barely spoke to. "Mariana, what's going on here? Who authorized this?" I yelled, on the verge of tears. With her eyes cast down, she murmured, "I'm so sorry, but they insisted they'd pay well. They said it was for a foundation, something exclusive." Sophia, her words hung in the air like a dagger. "Sophia, what?" I demanded. She said there would be no problem, that everything was fine. She didn't give me any more details, only told me to trust her. Her confession hit me like an avalanche of betrayal. Then I understood, my own flesh and blood, my sister, had agreed to the plan. Sophia had changed the locks on August 10, 2 days before I was to return, and handed copies to some suited strangers. That night, at 10 p.m., as the party was in full swing, someone flipped on neon lights outside and lined up expensive cars in front of the gate. I felt powerless and furious. I wanted to burst in and reclaim my home, but a deep-seated feeling stopped me. I looked around and saw people with crystal glasses in hand, laughing, taking pictures. My house, my sanctuary, was being displayed like a cheap trophy. I decided to watch in silence. I hid behind a curtain in a side hallway and overheard fragments of conversations. "Did you know this place belongs to a promising young entrepreneur? They say the family is influential. Do you think you'll meet the host?" Everyone spoke of me like I was a myth. The host. A chill ran down my spine. That very same night, before leaving on my trip, I suspected something was off. I had noticed a well-dressed man photographing the entrance and another inspecting the lock with a small flashlight. Then I realized there was no escape for me until the event ended. At 11:45 p.m., as one of the guests headed to the cocktail bar, I heard a click near the door. The original lock, the one I had installed to ensure nothing happened without my consent, had been replaced by a state-of-the-art electronic system. In that moment I understood I wouldn't be able to reclaim what was mine until dawn. I breathed deeply, feeling each heartbeat echo in my temples. It was my house, my refuge, but they had rented it out, turned it into a display of vanity. Determined, I returned that very night to a temporary apartment and searched for a locksmith I could trust. I called Marcos, a childhood friend who had continued in the trade. I explained the urgency in a trembling voice. "Marcos, I need to get back into my house before this party goes on. They changed the locks and won't hand them back until morning." At 1:15 a.m. on August 13th, Marcos showed up with his toolbox. After 30 meticulous minutes, he managed to bypass the electronic system without damaging it, restoring the original mechanism. He handed me a new key at 2 a.m. and told me not to make a sound. I returned to my house at 2:05 a.m., silent, my heart racing and adrenaline flooding my veins. I pushed the door gently and advanced carefully toward the living room. The music's pounding barely filtered through the laminated walls. I found a side hallway and headed for the staircase leading to the second floor, where I suspected my sister was. As I ascended, I noticed her bedroom door slightly ajar, unusual for her. I entered and saw her phone lying on the bed with dozens of muted notifications. A pang of guilt struck me. I still hadn't confronted her in person. Was she all right? While I was pondering, I heard the click of high heels coming down the stairs. I hid behind the door, holding my breath. Sophia descended, wearing a designer jacket I had not given her, and adjusted her hair in a portable mirror. Her red-rimming eyes betrayed both remorse and fear. "I have to talk to him before he finds out everything," she muttered. Seconds later, she left the room and walked into the living room, where the music and laughter engulfed her like a whirlwind. I stayed hidden, counting each step she took toward the main hall. I decided to act. I went to the main entrance hall and confronted the organizers. With a firm voice I said, "This is my house. I want you to end this farce and clear out." Silence took over the room. Several guests looked at me with curiosity, others with disdain. One of the coordinators, a tall man in a gray suit, approached and, smiling condescendingly, replied, "Sir, you are not the registered host. You'll have to prove it through legal channels." My breath sped up. With no cameras or documentation, I was at a disadvantage. Still, I met his gaze, refusing to back down. In the end, everyone was escorted out. The wealthy guests ostentatiously left, murmuring that it was a rumor or a viral marketing strategy. By dawn 5:30 a.m. on August 13 my house was empty, silent, but bearing visible scars, marks on the walls, broken glasses, and traces of food scattered across the floor. I looked at the decorations dangling from the chandeliers, the wilted floral arrangements. The sign "Exclusive Gala 2024" lay fallen on the floor, like an abandoned trophy. Walking onto the porch, I saw Sophia standing there under the faint light, tears in her eyes and a lost expression. She approached and said, "I'm sorry, brother. I thought this would help us improve our status. They promised a different future. But I was wrong." I embraced her tightly, and in that hug, I felt my rage crumble. We shared the pain, the remorse, and the anguish of betrayal. Despite everything, I knew she was my sister, and forgiveness, though difficult, had to be the only path forward. From that day on, my home was never the same. I changed the locks again, reinforced doors and windows, and sold every piece of furniture that reminded me of that night of betrayal. I learned that intentions can be as cold as a contract signed with a genuine signature. Months later, on October 20, 2024, while walking down Lopez Cotilla Street in downtown Guadalajara, I came across a report in a cafe. A lifestyle blogger was talking about the haunted house of the Exclusive Gala, claiming it had been a branding strategy for a millionaire entrepreneur. The article mentioned my name and displayed blurry photos of that evening. My face appeared on social media, and people began commenting on the supposed extravagance I had never asked for. I decided to take control of the narrative. On November 5, 2024, at 8 p.m., I organized a small gathering in a modest hall in Zapopan, Jalisco, with childhood friends and neighbors I'd known all my life. I told them the truth, showed unretouched images of my home before and after the party, and explained how that night had changed my perception of trust and ambition. Many listened in silence, and some voiced exclamations, "I can't believe your own sister. That's horrible." Yet the unity with those who grew up with me gave me the strength to move forward, despite the pain and sense of vulnerability. However, the wound did not fully heal. In early 2025, I received a certified letter from a law firm in Mexico City demanding I review a supposed contract signed by my sister, in which she had temporarily ceded my home for cultural and charitable purposes. When I opened it on January 3, 2025, at 2:20 p.m., I felt ice run down my spine. The signature bore the seal of a notary public from the capital, dated August 8, 2024. I realized that Sophia had been manipulated by external agents who convinced her that this session would bring benefits. The idea that my sister had signed on my behalf without asking me, without even requesting my permission, churned my stomach. On February 15, 2025, at 9 a.m., I decided to close that chapter once and for all. I traveled to Mexico City and, after a meeting at the notary's office, discovered that the document was illegitimate. The notary had been under investigation for forging legal documents and was facing charges. I received a call at 11:30 a.m. confirming that no valid contract existed and that my property had no legal threats. I exhaled with relief, but at the same time I understood how fragile the truth can be when distorted by another's ambition. Today, as I write this on March 1, 2025, at 5:10 p.m. from a small cafe in Tlaquepaque, I reflect on all the lessons learned, the importance of protecting my personal space, the fragility of family bonds in the face of greed, and the way stories can be distorted until they become urban legends. It all began with a viral phrase: "They used my house to impress the rich," but I changed the locks before the party and ended up teaching me that sometimes true strength lies in honesty and forgiveness. Understanding that my identity is not defined by a single night or by rumors, but by how we confront the truth and rise after betrayal.